it's like you're in a minefield, even in a marriage, never mind approaching a woman that you see in a public place. You're like, hey, maybe you're the woman who gives me ongoing genital gratification for the rest of my life. Let me go talk to you and see if you're interested in that.
Rob, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Aaron. Happy to be here, man.
Absolutely. This is the third installment of our conversation. So I encourage everyone watching or listening to go and check out those other two conversations because we're kind of building on each one as we get deeper sort of into the weeds about men and masculinity and dating and sex and all these types of things that we've discussed. But based on our last conversation, I think we should dive more deeper into some actual tactics on how a man can actually approach a woman, maybe in public, at the gym, or good conversation starters for dating apps, whatever the approach might be. Rob, where would you start with that question?
Well,
Hello, my friend. Before we jump straight into the episode, I would love to share the sponsors of this podcast. And the sponsors of this podcast are all the businesses that I've created that are really part of the ecosystem that run this whole thing. And at the top of that list is Patreon. Patreon is the home of our exclusive community where we do bonus episodes, live streams, Q&As, and merch discounts, and so much more. Patreon is the number one way to support this podcast and to support my mental health nonprofit called You Are Loved. Next, we have my clothing brand called Shop for Everybody. Every hat and every t-shirt you see me wear on every single episode of this podcast is from Shop for Everybody. It's the home of For the Dads, For the Moms, all Something for Everybody merch, and it's the home of all You Are Loved merch. So that's shopforeverybody.com. And the last thing is my sports performance brand called Champions Adjust. Again, if you see anything Champions Adjust related, it's all found at champsadjust.com. It also has its own podcast. We also do a sports show through Champions Adjust. And if you're looking for any mindset or mental skills classes, they can all be found at champsadjust.com. And so if you want to stay up to date on everything that we're doing here with all of the businesses that I'm involved in, please go to aaronmashbitz.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thank you. Now, on to the episode, completely uninterrupted and ad-free. Here we go.
I typically, it's so much more intuitive and clear for me to respond to a specific person having a specific experience. So I'll just name that. Working in general is kind of impossible, but we'll see what we can do. I'll first start by just naming that I think a lot of the people who are more willing to engage around how to have better relationships and sex lives are people who are in kind of dire situations, like people who are like, this is just so obviously not cool. Like, this is definitely not the vision that I had for myself. It's not what you're looking for, right? When you're growing up, or even when you think about what your ideal life would be. But the reason that I'm speaking to this is that I think that more or less everybody is not in a great situation in terms of having the skills, and the capacity required to be truly fulfilled in their relationships and in sex specifically. All right. Like, I think that this is just almost like a epidemic in our society that people are generally just completely not equipped to, at no fault to their own, create a truly meaningful, satisfying sexual life. It's like our society does not give us the toolkit to fulfill this thing that seemingly everyone wants. I have had a lot of conversations and informal polls and interviews and research, and it seems like basically everyone wants something that basically no one has. Yeah. So I like to start these conversations by just laying out, like, there's nothing wrong with you. This is how it is for almost everyone, even who check all the boxes on paper. I have many former clients who have said, like, I have a beautiful wife. We have more sex than all of our friends, and I still don't feel fulfilled. This isn't what I want, and I don't know how to shift that. And I've also talked with a lot of men who are just like, yo, I haven't had sex in like a year and a half. I don't even talk to women. Like, it's really weird. I don't even know what to do. So, I think that it's good to just kind of level the playing field, that we're all kind of coming from the same place. And that place is growing up in a society that doesn't help us to be equipped to do a thing. And one other thing that I'll just name here that is um, simple and normalizing. Again, doing a lot of polls, a lot of conversations with men. It seems like, and I can't remember if I mentioned this to you before, Aaron, so you can let me know. When asking people, like, what is it that you really want if you could just have whatever you dream up, what is it? It seems like there's several things that relate to, like love and intimacy and being met, but it seems like there's like a universal desire that sounds something like, I want ongoing, intense genital gratification from a beautiful woman who loves me.
Mhm.
Like, it's interesting just to be like, okay, we're men, we are human beings. This is basically universal, that men are like, I want intense, ongoing genital gratification from a hot woman who loves me all the time until I'm really old. Like, I want
And then
that.
even then.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And even then. And in the work that I do, men really owning this is sometimes complicated. That we feel ashamed or we feel entitled, and it's a fucking confusing thing, right? And this leads up to a a place where we can talk about dating or approaching women or seeking to initiate sexual relationships, or fix a sexless marriage, spice up a relationship that's maybe gotten less interesting over time, whatever, whatever, whatever. So if we try to take responsibility for kind of like stewarding our desire into reality, there's a whole bunch of problems that we encounter. One of them is that you need another person to do something that's kind of vulnerable and taboo and brings up a lot of fear and insecurity and confusion. Like, you're basically like touching a bunch of bombs, like you're in a minefield, even in a marriage, never mind approaching a woman that you see in a public place. You're like, hey, maybe you're the woman who gives me ongoing genital gratification for the rest of my life. Let me go talk to you and see if you're interested in that. Is like, on a certain level, like, that is the premise. That is the premise. It's like, oh, there's a cute girl with her dog. I wonder if she wants to do that for me, is really like, whoa, how the fuck do I, like, with any sort of like tact or grace or not being a fucking creep, interact with her where that is literally the premise. It literally is the premise, right? And I think that part of our situation is there's so much scarcity and confusion that it's not like we're interacting with tons of women where there's an openness around the possibility of that kind of sexual relationship. So it seems really precious. Like, this is something that I think is true. And if you think about, like, to be a little crass, like men who are just swimming in pussy their whole lives, it's
Mhm.
not really a big deal. And thus, women feel way more comfortable and open around the subject because there's not this pressure, this neediness, or this lack of fluency in being able to navigate something that's inherently weird. That's like, we don't really know each other, but the reason why we're interacting is because we might be interested in something that's really vulnerable and also really meaningful, but we all kind of have to, you know, play a weird game, or at least think that we do. So to land this in something that's really practical, it's it's helpful for men to kind of hold themselves in that desire instead of trying to like manage it in the way that they're interacting with the woman. And that can sound abstract. We can circle back to it, but what it shows up as is bringing the curiosity, not this sort of like desperation and like existential confusion that people have about their sexuality and their potential, inevitable loneliness or whatever, is a whole lot to bring into an interaction with a new person versus being like, hey, I'm curious about you. Right. So like it seems like the containment of all of this big stuff, and then where the rubber meets the road is simply curiosity and
Mm.
impact. Basically, like I saw you, you seem cute. I'm curious about you. Who are you? Like this is a very different conversation than like I'm trying to like resolve a profound concern I have about my future by uh, how well this conversation goes. So there's something about the stakes and the spill that creates a kind of complication rather than men holding themselves, being able to just be like, this is something that I want. This is something that I understand is um, also about her role. This is another thing that I think is an important part of men learning to um, take responsibility for their sexual lives is understanding that women are highly sexual, understanding that in specific circumstances, women love offering ongoing genital gratification to a man, and outside of those specific situations, they don't. And the premise that they would often makes women feel extremely uncomfortable and protective. So I'll pause there. There's a whole lot more that I can say, but maybe just to like reiterate what I'm getting at. Um, I think men really like taking their sexual desires out of the like dungeon of their shadow and really owning that this is like a totally dignified part of my humanity and of my manhood is a important step. And that is hard to do sometimes. Like to there are processes for it that I've laid out, we do in our programs, and it's not that hard, but it's I think that a lot of men are so isolated. They are so isolated, and then they have this really corrupted, weird thing that is going on in their life with porn, and it just creates shame, and it creates the sense of like how does the like raunchiness and like depth of my sexual interests translate to this other person's reality? Like, how does that happen? And it so often doesn't. So the isolation continues. And then there's a bunch of like lonely, horny people alone in their apartments living right next to a lonely, horny person who would be super interested in connecting with them, but there's no bridge.
Mhm.
So, I translate your question to that. Like, how do we bridge that? How do the fact that, like, we really do want to meet each other's needs, we just don't know how, and we're maybe missing the skills to do that, at the end of the road, anyways. I'll pause there.
Okay. I have two things came to mind as you were speaking. One, I recently did a podcast episode about habit formation for, 2026 and all that. And one of the main things you think about with habit formation is trying to make it too small to fail. Because most people try to have a habit and they make it so grand, so big, so large that 2 weeks in, they fucking drop the habit. Now I'm thinking about the same thing for men. It's like, I want to have this thing you're talking about. I want to be sexually satisfied by a woman for the rest of my life. That's like a really, really large, lofty goal. And so if you go into every single interaction thinking that, that's tough because then every time you get rejected, you think your whole life is at stake instead of saying, okay, I'm going to enter this conversation with a goal that's like too small to fail, which is like saying a couple words and her saying a couple words back, or me just like opening a conversation or something like
Yeah.
that. So I think of like that in terms of like what are the sort of the smallest movers you can make to start having incremental change. and just relationship to like your habits. And a great habit you want to develop is I want to curate better relationships in my life. That's like the most important thing we have. So maybe
Yeah.
we can translate that as well. So I thought that. So don't make it the goal so overwhelmingly fucking hard that it's like almost impossible for you to get it done. And when you don't get it done, there's even more shame and more I'm a shitty fucking person and I'm always going to be lonely and all these things start to happen. It's like, what is like a tiny mover I can make? Okay, maybe the tiniest mover is like I'm gonna go get a fucking haircut. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
a haircut because that's a good step in the right direction. And then the second thing I thought of was um there is a lot of men that I come in contact with who have actually convinced themselves that they're better off alone. And I think that's also not that they're better off alone, but they're trying to sort of rewire their brain
Yeah.
to want other things because they haven't gotten the thing that they really want. And so they're saying, I've just become really happy, by myself. And it's like, no, you're fucking lying. You're a liar.
Yeah.
But
The
you're lying because you're trying to
rationalization.
protect yourself from all of the hurt and the pain. And it's totally makes sense. And so
Yeah.
those two things sort of popped in my brain as you're speaking. And so off that, we'll
Yeah.
just keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah. I do see this as well, the kind of rationalization. And it's tricky, right? Because even that is worth unpacking because I think this sense of like, I will finally be whole and complete when a woman sucks my cock every morning or whatever is like often seeking to compensate for something. It's like often like I don't feel whole in myself, so I'm seeking to compensate. So it's not that. This is why this becomes a much deeper conversation related to nervous system capacity and trauma healing and looking at our childhood and stuff like that. Not because we're, going into the crypts with a crowbar to figure out our suffering or whatever, but because when we go for what we want, that stuff comes up. So, this distinction between taking responsibility for a positive outcome and seeking to compensate for feeling fundamentally incomplete or broken is nuanced, right? Because it seems the same, where it's like, oh, I'm going to like chase tail or whatever because I want a wife or because that's my nature is to be, in that kind of bond with a woman versus like I'm not okay and it's going to make me feel better. It's a different neurological activity fundamentally to be like I existentially don't feel okay. My self-esteem is outside in. So now I want a trophy on my arm and a story that I tell myself so that I feel better about my life. That never works. It doesn't that is not a thing. And it's super confusing. And in some ways, it could be maybe better in the bigger picture to not have these successes that are not really about wholeness, they're about compensation. But that's a whole nother conversation. You said two things that are interesting. One of them brings up how, with a lot of goals, with a lot of habits, you're the only one involved. That's not true with women and dating and sex, and this is the biggest problem. It's like the biggest problem a lot of people have with sex is they don't have anyone to have sex with, and you can't control other people, and even if you could, it creates a dynamic that's not really the thing that we're looking for anyways. It falls apart pretty fast. Like even if you had like master manipulation skills, that's not really how you create a good life. So the reality that you can't control people is a thing to deal with, and it goes into your piece around habits. It's like what is the thing that you control? It's your actions, right? It's like it is you. It's not like and there's a certain point with with business, with dating, whatever, where you could be like, okay, my goal is to go on, you know 4 dates a month or whatever, or to make this much money. But there's a certain point where if you're at earlier stages in the journey, that is so defeating and disheartening because you can't control it. You can just control that I will, as you say, like I will interact with people when I walk by them or whatever, and just like get compliment people, for example. I think that this is, there are other people who really focus on this, and this is not, it's not my expertise, but it's not my focus. The thing that I am super passionate about and have something singular to contribute is specifically around sex. Um, but the thing around dating and socializing, if I were to speak to your thing of like what is a small sweet step, as they say, that people can kind of start to get out of the mud and like gain some altitude here in their intention. It is often as simple as just like engage with people. Stop
Mhm.
pretending that we're not having an interaction. Like for me personally, what I have kind of set out to do in my earlier years was to just open an interaction with everyone. Be a friendly person. When you make eye contact, just like smile, say hello. It's that simple in terms of a step one because we're already interacting. We're just all pretending that we're not because that's what social norms dictate. But it's like, when you walk into a place, people are like, okay, cool. Like there's an acknowledgement. It's like, okay, I see you, you see me. But we just pretend that we're not doing that, which is weird. And I understand that. I think this is partially related to the fact that we don't really know how to not be tribal. Like, it's confusing. Like, we are designed to be around people that we know, and because we're not, I think we still haven't figured out how to deal with that very well. But, yeah, I think that, like, when men get into the habit of opening conversations with people and being socially active in their daily life as it already is, that is often the step number 1 in getting more substance, like more juice into your social life. And people might be like, well, like, how does talking to like a fucking old lady or like the dude that lives next door to me gonna help me? It's because you won't be so miscalibrated when you try to have a conversation with someone when there is attraction.
Mhm.
Like, if you're like not interacting with people, especially if you're not interacting with women, especially if you're not interacting with attractive women, and then you meet a supermodel, you're gonna act weird as fuck. Like, even me, I know that, like, the difference between when I'm in flow socially and when I'm not even happens on a minute to minute basis where I can be sitting at my computer at a cafe working, and then I'll try to talk to someone and I'm just like, "I'm autistic for the next 20 seconds, sorry," and just, like, getting into the, like, "Okay, let me not be in this like logical space or this sort of internal space." So yeah, like I think that this is a really useful practice is just get in the habit of talking to people. Just say hi, smile, like be on the other side of friendliness as a muscle, like build that skill. And from that place, you can see about like, okay, how can I move this further? How can I stay in the conversation a little bit longer? How can I be more communicative? Right. And sometimes again, it's as simple as what I said before is like, just share that you're like what you are actually experiencing. Being like, hey, I saw you. You seem like someone I would like to meet. What's your name? I'm curious about you. Like, it just literally that simple to be like, "Hey, you seem like someone I wanted to talk to. What's up? I'm Rob. What's your
Yep.
name? Where are you
Yep.
from?" Like, very, and it can go from just having a, casual conversation or just like shooting the shit or whatever into exchange contact information. And I think one of the biggest things is just do it. Like, get in the game of talking to people, talk to women, talk to everybody. And if you're like, well, I don't want to like I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the kind of person who just talks to everybody. Then it's like, yeah, cool. Do that in 6 months after you, or do it in 1 month. Like I think people are so often they're basing their conclusions about their self from a lack of evidence, like from incomplete information. Where they're like, "Oh, like I'm not that kind of guy." It's like, "Well, you've never been that kind of guy. You've always been, letting your fears dictate your behavior instead of making a conscious choice to do something different." And, the same behavior gets the same outcome, obviously. We know the definition of insanity, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The other thing that you said, well, I guess I covered them. The 2 things that I wrote down here is that, like, you can't control somebody else, right? So to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna, like, find a perfect lover," or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but, like, what if she doesn't wanna be your lover? You can't do anything about that. But what you can do is just get into a flow where you're taking responsibility for that part of your life and can kind of, like, narrativize the story and be like, if you're committed to having a great life, if you're committed to having a great sexual life, prove it. Show the universe that you're serious.
Mhm.
Like, for real. Be like, what is the evidence that you are committed to that outcome? If you're not convincing yourself that you're committed to the outcome, it's very unlikely. It's very unlikely. And then sometimes you tell that, like, when I say that thing to people, in their mind, they're like, "But what about that one time in high school with Janine at summer camp? She just liked me and initiated." It's like, "Yeah, dude, okay. You should just wait for Janine to initiate your marriage." Like,
Yeah.
that's a viable strategy for you as a man, you know? So, anyways, several directions, but that's some things.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, a lot of men will say, what's the point of having a conversation with dudes and grannies and all these people that I don't want to have sex with? Well, it's like, why do you think professional athletes have a preseason? Because they're getting ready for the real time. That's exactly what you're doing. Like, you're not going to be able to have a flowy sort of back and forth, really interesting conversation where you make eye contact and you don't stumble over your words all the time, or you're not checking your phone every 32 seconds because you're getting nervous about the silence. If you don't practice with literally everyone in non consequential environments, per se,
Yeah,
like a preseason outing. So you're talking to the dude
yeah,
at the gym that you see every week. And that's still intimidating. If you're a guy in the gym and this guy's fucking jacked, and you want to be like him, that's a little intimidating too, but it's less scary because fuck it, he's just another dude, right? And most of the time, dudes at the gym are really nice. And this is also
yeah,
why you want to frequent, at least this was helpful for me, the same places over and over and over and over again. Like, go to the gym, the same gym all the time. Most people do, but like, you're going to see the same people. So then, like, you guys have made eye contact for 6 straight days in a row. Now find a nice time to say, "What's up, dude? I see you here all the time. Nice working out." Fucking
yeah,
okay, cool. Most likely you're gonna see them tomorrow. And the same thing for a coffee shop, or if it's a chick, or if maybe it's the fucking barista, or whatever the case may be. It's like you're just striking up random conversations, not actually, and maybe you don't even have an aim for it. You're just being a nice human in the world, and that usually
yeah,
leads to something. And then there's
yeah,
the window gets open, and then maybe that person sees you when they walk in. They're like, "Oh, you're right there. I'm gonna have a coffee
yeah,
next to you." And it's like, holy shit, there's the Janine moment. There's the
yeah,
fucking Janine moment, but you built it up over weeks and weeks of
exactly.
just saying
You're
hello.
increasing the probability of having luck,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is actually, we can open this into several directions. One of them is like I mentioned this already, and it's worth double clicking on. And I'll say this, you know, this is really important for people to hear. You are already interacting with these people. You are already interacting with these people, and the interaction is fucking weird. It is a losing strategy for how to create an abundant life. It does not succeed. It is not a winning approach. You all like the idea is like you are literally already interacting with these people already. And the interaction is weird. It's fake. It's like you're pretending that you're not interacting. You're doing this sort of like, oh, like I'm too cool, like nonchalance thing a lot of the time. It doesn't work. It is a losing strategy for building community, building an abundant social life, for meeting people, for increasing the probability of coming across someone where there's a real connection. It doesn't work. And I think, like for whatever reason, people just get in the kind of trance that that is viable, and it's not. And another thing that you said, and I'm maybe being a little firm here or direct because I think it's important to like advocate for this, that like it's not it's not a good idea to be so isolated and inauthentic. It does not result in good outcomes. And cool. I lost track of something here, but I'll see if it comes back around. The other thing that I was going to say is that um, intimidation, when dealing with really beautiful women, is something that is a lot deeper than people think. This is trippy as fuck. I did a call recently in one of my programs about the opposite kind of sexism than we're used to talking about. Like we often like, we're pretty good at talking about how men have taken advantage of the power that they have in relationship with women and the stuff around misogyny and sexism and what feminism is trying to correct and yada, yada, yada. And something that is really unpopular and people will fucking come after you if you talk about it in public. But, here we are in public. Talk about it a bit. Women are physically vulnerable to men because they are inferior physically. I would also argue that men are vulnerable to women because they are socially and sexually inferior to women, that women are in the position of power. And I think that men are seeking to reconcile their vulnerability. Like, the woman has power over them. It's like they're not even able to take responsibility for what is good for them. We see this in situations where there is an agenda to take advantage of a man or to manipulate. Like, if you look at, like, espionage or whatever, like it's so obvious that men are sexually vulnerable. And I think part of our intimidation is this fact that, like, this woman, like, has me by the balls. We've never even interacted and she has power over me.
Yeah.
So I think this fear and intimidation is not just like, "Oh, I'm insecure and I hope that she likes me because I still feel like a shy little kid." It's like, maybe it's a little bit of that, but I think it's also in part like, I feel, like, literally vulnerable to this person's power. It's like, what? It's like, "What do you want me to do? I'll do it." Whatever, it's like, this is so real, right? And this is also another thing that, like, men who don't have that tend to be in a different dynamic. Like, men who don't feel that the woman has any power and they can take it or leave it tend to be far more attractive to women because
Mhm.
they're on a level playing field, or the dynamic is flipped if the man is able to be like, yeah, like, you're hot, but, like, who cares? There's hot women everywhere in the world. I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to have sex with you, give you anything, let you into my world unless you prove to me that that's worth my time and that you will honor me and that's it. Like, I'm the prize. What are you talking about? Right? Like, that's a very different dynamic. And when men really have that embodiment, it drives women crazy. Like, they're so willing to just, like, throw themselves at men who are discerning and contained. But this is all like, when there's also a risk that when men hear this, that they again just deceive themselves and rationalize their unwillingness to engage with women, of being like, "Well, I'm the prize, she should chase me," or whatever. It's just like, yeah, but that's delusional and no. So so yeah, man, it's like, this is again one of the reasons why I just continue to advocate for, like, the thing time and time again, my work gets formed or, like, framed as a rite of passage. Like, we don't know how to handle this part of our lives, sex, relationships, whatever, because we were raised in a society that doesn't give us that. It's nobody's fault, and you should probably change it, right? You should probably change it. Um, yeah, I'll let you direct the conversation from here. There's a ton of different directions we could go.
Well, yeah, I mean, it becomes interesting what you mentioned about the guys who kind of, get enough access to sex that being attractive or hot is not really the marker anymore.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
they don't care. It's like, I'm not going to it's not a priority. It doesn't cause me to compromise stuff. Like, I won't do that. It's
mhm.
like, who cares? It's whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think this is also a trap that feeds into what you mentioned before, this sort of, like, rationalization that, like, that's not true. I'm trying to tell myself that story because it takes some pressure off. So what do you do? Right? What do you do? And I think one of the things you do is just get around women, interact with women more, talk to women more, have women in your life. Even if you get friend zoned, great. Now you have a female friend. Like, it's
Right.
good. It's helpful, I think, for men to not be attached to outcomes, but also be attached to showing up. It's like, maybe she's interested in me, maybe not, but I don't fully believe this, but I could say that at a certain point, it's almost like a numbers game. It's like when you have hundreds of women or touch points with women that are attractive, it's a different reality. It's a completely different reality. And that sort of thing it's helpful, I think, for men to think about, like, my goal might be to establish a habit. It's not to find my wife, it's to establish a habit. And finding my wife is maybe the goal of, like, stage 3, but the
Mhm.
goal of stage 1 is to just establish a new habit in the way that I socialize, a willingness to be communicative and honest and open with people and to initiate things and to get to know my own patterns and to see what is it like? What happens for me when I interact with women? What am I thinking? How do I navigate these conversations? Because that often will reveal what you need to learn, what's confusing. Results are a really great way of getting feedback.
Right. Yeah, if eventually at some point you're not getting the outcomes that you want, I relate everything to sports. Like if we go 0 and 32, our process and our habits were probably not very good, because
Well,
we didn't win a single game.
for
But
sure,
there
but
is
even the
something to be learned about that going into the next season, right? Go ahead.
yeah, well, I was just gonna say the more specific information that you get too, you can take that into camp or whatever,
Mm.
strategy, planning. Like, what is it that I am missing? Right? What is it that I am missing? And it's like the conversation so often can be about how do we solve for scarcity. Like, so often the conversation about how do we improve our sex life is a conversation about, like, solving for the problem of scarcity. There's not enough. I don't have enough sex. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's the conversation that I think most people get stuck at. But there are many other conversations that are worth having. And I would say that it's not that hard to solve the scarcity problem. It is not that hard to create the conditions in which you have an abundance of opportunities to have sex with women. It is not that hard. It just requires having the skill set and habits that make that your reality. And we can hang out here and have this conversation about how to solve for scarcity. And I also feel really passionate about looking at the next things. Because it's like, once you are having plenty of sex, then what? Because sometimes that conversation actually fixes the upstream one. It fixes the scarcity one because people are connected to the value of what they actually are inviting somebody into. Right. It's like, I'm interested in us being in this beautiful world. It's not just this kind of, like, sketchy crack den of my, like, porn obsession bleeding into an interaction with a pretty girl. It's me having a cultivated relationship with a real invitation that is touching and meaningful for another person. So sometimes I find that it's helpful to really look at, like, okay, like, let's get you on some dates or whatever. And then other times it's better to be like, okay, wait a minute. Like, you can enjoy your sexual life to no end in 2 months. Let's address, what is it that you're actually inviting somebody into? What is it that you're claiming as your sexual life? The aspirations and vision that you have for your sexual life as something that you can occupy and own, and then have something real to be like, hey, this is what I'm into. Like, this is what I want. And as I say that, the phrase, this is what I'm into, that often is like evoking something that is really pornographic or has like a certain aesthetic or flavor. Like, my work, as distinct from a lot of other people who work in the whatever, I don't know, sex education space, whatever you want to call it, is like, I think that we have to get out of this sort of like, I don't even know what to call it, like this frame that our sexuality is this like sexy thing, rather than like this is just a fundamental part of being a fucking human being. It is not this like lipstick and like whips thing or whatever, like that's, or like lingerie, or like being it's like that is culture. That is something that people made up. It is not fundamentally related to your sexuality or anybody else's. It's like a lamination on top of it. So I'm just stating that as like this is what I'm into isn't like, oh, check out these videos or whatever that I like, think is the ultimate thing that I should find somebody to do with me or whatever. Like that's usually not even in the vicinity of what true sexual satisfaction comes from. It's just fantasy. It's not real. It's not real. And we know that that's true because when people experience true sexual satisfaction, they don't even think about it anymore. They don't even, it's like, oh, that was just some like bullshit projection from being subject to this like weird cultural mist that everyone is inside of. It's not real. It's like swinging around on the monkey bars of a myth, of an illusion, right? So, um, what I have seen is men are not clearly inviting a woman into something because they have not cultivated a relationship with themselves that is sound. It's not clear. We are often operating in a superficial misunderstanding of our own values. So taking the time to really look like, truly, what is it that I stand for? What am I about? What do I want a relationship for? Because it's often a vague suggestion of companionship. It's like, "Oh, well, like, I just want a woman by my side to grow old with," or whatever, and it's like, well, why would she want that? Why do you want that? And
And
often,
what kind of woman?
yeah, yeah, like, what, but that it's like, Aaron, it gets so tricky because when you say that, it's like, I want an Eastern European supermodel with huge tits. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like, it's like
yeah.
that's literally what happens in people's brains when you're like, "What kind of a woman?" They're like, "I want a big booty Latina who likes anal. That's the kind of woman I'm into." But, like,
Wha
it's for
Yeah,
real, man. It's like, it's so unhinged because
my
we
brain
are.
goes in a different direction, you know,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's like
I believe you, man. I'm just like, it's it's like we're it's real, right? It's like that's what it's not actually connected to a sense of wholeness. And I think this is so tricky because, for example, the premise of my work, like literally what I do is I help people experience sexual satisfaction. And when you say that word, it conjures a bunch of imagery and fantasies and associations that have little to nothing at all to do with what genuine sexual satisfaction is. So a lot of the work starts with clarifying what exactly is sexual satisfaction, because in our cultural frame it's ambiguous and vague, it's highly varied. It's like, oh, well, it depends on if you like this or that. Are you a freak? Are you vanilla? Are you whatever? Like it's almost like we are not. This is maybe a bit uh I don't know, it sounds intellectual or like big words, but it's the difference between what is our intrinsic sexual nature and what is adaptive, what is culturally reinforced and seeded by exogenous myths. Like literally, it is impressed upon us what we should be doing and what our sexuality is about. It is not actually about our nature or about what would be fulfilling. So it turns sexual ambition into a hungry ghost of addiction. It's fantastical nonsense. It's not like the women in my community, it's this like pinup girl nympho who doesn't exist. That's a
Mhm,
fictional person. It's, I mean, what, but it isn't totally true. Like you can find, you know, a total nympho, but It's not all it's cracked up to be, fellas. I'll tell you firsthand. That's not really what you want. The ability to provide a woman with the conditions in which her highly sexual and orgasmic nature comes out naturally is what you want. That's the deal. And I would argue that all women have a highly sexual and orgasmic nature, even if they do not know those parts of themselves at all. It is about the conditions being provided such that those parts want to come out and play. So again, the sense of like reclaiming this is a totally dignified, honorable, and legit part of who I am. I want this. It is how I feel whole and complete in myself as a person. I know that this is something someone else would love to co create with me because I understand and I understand what type of situation would make it natural and inspiring for a woman to meet me in that. Because that's a different meeting point when you walk up to the girl at a bar and you're like, hey, you're hot. It's like, I'm inviting you, like, you just hit the fucking lottery if you're interested in this guy,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Like that is real. It is real. I have seen time and time again when men come out of the work that I do, they're like, I know that I am in the 1% of the 1%. It's suddenly a little easier to be like, hey, you're attractive. Because it's not like, oh, I'm not kind of hiding my own confusion and insecurity about my sexuality. I understand it. I understand what I'm looking for. I know what does not work. I know the traps that people get in. And this is an exploration. I'm curious. I saw you and something happened in my body, and you seem like someone I'd like to meet. I would probably regret it for at least 30 seconds if I didn't come talk to you right now.
For a minute or two till I saw somebody else who fucking caught my attention.
Exactly, and it's funny because, like, now we're just shooting the shit, but this is hilarious. It's actually really good game to just tell the truth, to be like, "Hey, I saw you, and I was curious." I'm like, "Oh, you seem interesting. You're cute. Who are you? I wanna come meet you. What's your name?" It's like
Right.
it's funny to just tell the truth. It's like, it's often endearing and even to be like, I feel really nervous. I made a rule that anytime I feel really intimidated by a woman, I have to go talk to her. What's up? What's your name? Like, that's a totally fine way to start an interaction. Often women are like, that's cool. Respect. Like, it
Right.
starts off with being like, this, this dude, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
we always think it has to be some sort of grand. Have you ever seen the movie Hitch, Rob?
yes, I
With Will
have.
Smith and Kevin James.
I have.
The movie
Yeah.
is very interesting because it sort of shows two dynamics, right? The movie starts off with Will Smith, who's got a ton of game. He's very handsome, and this one girl at the beginning of the movie, they're at like this pool hall, and she's like surrounded by a couple dudes, and he walks over to her and he gives her money, and he says, "Hey, I'd like a drink at the bar. Could you get it to me?" And she's like very confused. She walks out of the
Yeah.
group of guys. She's like,
Pattern
"I don't,
intro.
I don't, I don't fucking work here." He's like, "Yeah, I fucking know, mate. You're surrounded by four dudes. I was getting you away from them. Now let's go get a fucking drink." That's cool because it works for him because he's like strikingly handsome, right? And then all the advice that he gives Kevin James throughout the movie, Kevin James is sort of like really doesn't do any of that. He just like is himself in the most authentic, sort of genuine way, and he attracts a super hot babe. Um, and so it's like it doesn't need to be as complicated as you think it needs to be, but sort of the core of the conversation that we're having is that you actually have to try. And,
Yeah.
uh, like, the porn you watch is the WWE version of a fist fight. Like, if you go out in the streets and get into a fight and you
That's
try
a
to do some
great
fucking
analogy.
WWE moves, you're gonna get your ass beat. I used to be a professional wrestler. I get it. If I fucking phantom punch someone in the street and tell them to duck as I'm trying to hit them, I'm gonna get fucking clocked. And that's the exact same way as what pornography is. And so when you get into the real world and
Yes.
experience real shit and want to have real sexual satisfaction, you like that stuff is not like this doesn't like ask any porn star. She's like, yeah, I faked every orgasm I've ever had in my whole life, and then I don't know what to do in real life because all I do is fake. And so if that's all we do, then there's no there's no substance, there's no realness to it, and anything like that. But anyways, keep going.
I love what you're saying, man, and I think that the martial arts analogy goes deep. Like if we this is cool. This is a worthwhile direction to go into. Like, if you think about how women are sexually superior to men, we can, hang out with that idea for a second. Women don't really need to learn very much to be able to explore the depths of their sexuality and pleasure. Like, there's some stuff that is helpful for sure, but comparatively to men, it's almost like we're in a different camp. A big part of that, for not all men, but for many men, is ejaculation control.
Mm,
And another part of it is not understanding female orgasm, because I think women pretty easily understand men's orgasms, or at least ejaculation.
mm,
And yeah, I mean, there are many directions that we can go with that analogy, but the Taoists, the ancient Chinese spiritual lineage, frames sexual practice as sexual kung fu. Almost this idea that, like, she's trying to overtake you. She's like, there's some sort of, and I don't mean this in like a malicious sense, but like the idea is basically like she's trying to throw you off the horse, right? Like that, and you have to win. You have to win. She's trying to make you come, and you have to not let her and make her come. Like, which is like kind of a ridiculous frame, but it's also sound to think about the martial art of, there's something here that is going to beat me unless I overcome it. It's a bit risky of an analogy, but I think that it works even with this conversation about dating, where it's like your fear is the opponent. Your stories, your delusional stories are the opponent. Are you going to let that motherfucker beat you? Because you are, right? Like, it's like the reality is, like, if you're not experiencing sexual satisfaction, you're losing, right? And it's like, this is kind of brutal, and it's helpful to just be direct. This is a huge problem, and people do not take it seriously, and the consequences are massive, massive. The difference between a man who is truly sexually fulfilled and a man who is not is a different person. It is a different person. And the only one who can tell you the truth about that is yourself, right? Or if you're willing to be direct with someone who has the expertise and share candidly about what's up for you. But I'll tell you, it's almost zero people that are truly sexually satisfied. And I don't mean at the level of like, even like what we like to tell ourselves, on the level of the body, like on the level of the body, being like, this is actually complete. My sexual life is fulfilled. It's almost nobody. Even the people that you think have it all figured out, they don't have it all figured out. Right. And it's not anyone's fault. Our society did not give us the toolkit that's necessary for that to happen. But it's something that you can shift. It is not rocket science. It's not vague or mysterious. It is a process that you can go through to develop that skill set. Um, There's one other thing that I was going to say here that I think is a relevant piece. The thing that I mentioned about sexual satisfaction actually being like an authentic body based experience is, I think that idea is often like confusing to people. Like they're like, well, isn't satisfaction more subjective? Isn't it more like personal preference? Like, oh, are you satisfied? Are you not satisfied? And I think I mean, truth is a kind of impossible idea, but like it seems extremely constructive and concrete on a body level when we look at sexual satisfaction and sexual fulfillment as this, like, it is not vague. It is a concrete thing that you can experience. Um, yeah, I'll pause there. There's a lot of threads, but I'm curious how that lands for you.
Yeah. I mean, because one of the questions I had at the very top was, will I be lonely forever? And I think we've answered that question on top of the initial question that I asked. And if you do some of these things that we've discussed, you won't be lonely forever. Uh, and I think that's sort of an important sort of uplifting piece. It's like it may suck right now, but everything sucks before it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important thing to just to note, like, no, there is a way through, and that you definitely don't have to be lonely forever. The choice is certainly yours. It won't be easy. Nothing ever amazing that you have in life is easy. But then also on top of that, you see this like based on sort of sexual satisfaction, you see this conversation online, maybe with like a female dating coach who's like encouraging women to give their husbands more than one blowjob a year. And then in like the comments, you see, okay, yeah, he'll get two blowjobs a year. It's like, so there is kind of this like dismissal almost of a man's need even from his wife,
Well,
even from what's supposed to
it's
be his most powerful, connected
totally.
partner, whatever the case may be. And so sort of to click on again what you said is like even in a marriage where like, they might seem perfect to have all the stuff, it's like, still nothing might be as it seems. And I also think that kind of comment dismisses a man's need for a potential blowjob because it's like, oh, he doesn't need that shit, whatever. He can, what it's like very, I don't know, it's kind of bothers me in that sense.
It's it's like we're really in the weeds of how off we are, because it's like that story that you just told is super common, and if we were to translate it, it basically is like it is manipulation. It is a kind of transactional manipulation. It is framing sexuality as something that women do for men to appease them as a way of control or avoiding conflict. This is fundamentally off in every way. Women's sexuality is the match for male sexuality. It's not like she's doing you a favor. Right, like, there's a way to set it up where it's like you're doing her a favor to give her a
Mhm.
good old cock to suck, right? And it's like, that's a world worth cultivating, and it's real. I have witnessed so many people come out of the dark ages in their marriage where they flip it because there is sexual awakening. It's a good word, like a real awakening, a sense that, like, we are alive and vitalized by this exchange. This is what we both want, right? Like, I think that generally women, because of their sensual and embodied nature, tend to be as, if not more, interested in sex than men when they are awake. And this is not like an invitation to berate your wife for not wanting to fuck you or whatever. Like, this is just to say, from what I have seen from a clinical and personal observation lens, is that women are highly sexual. They're highly sexual. It is a symptom of something going on when that is not the case. And that's also deep, right? Like, it's like we get into conversations around, like, bodily use patterns and sexual shame and childhood trauma and sexual trauma, and it's like we have to establish a totally new culture. Like, we have to get out of the world that says that if women are doing their dutiful job or whatever, they do X, or if they want to appease their partner, they do Y or whatever. Like, that whole entire frame is sick. That is not n- natural. That is not how, like it. And again, I want to ground this in, and I try to not speak about my opinions, but rather what is observable, concrete data, like just based on like real evidence, like sound perspectives, or just the kind of bare naked truth about the reality of what it is to be a human being. Like, what I'm describing has to do with incoherence on an embodied level, on a relational level. This is not our nature. This is sick. There is a distortion of the essence of human nature that is playing here because of some combination of a fucked up culture and transgenerational trauma and disembodiment. Like that's basically the deal. And everybody's hypnotized and does not understand that we've been scammed away from like the most natural and beautiful part of our humanity that is inherently super corrective of imbalance and dysfunction and disconnection and all of that. Right, like, it's like that awareness, the understanding of what are we even talking about is huge because when we, like, introduce the idea of, like, "Okay, we're here to talk about how to have a better sex life," that is being processed inside of, like, a frame and worldview that is sick. It's like anything will just be stacking on top of the wrong foundation until we just shake the Etch-a-Sketch and, like, throw that fucking thing in the trash and be like, what is it? Like, what is it? What is this part of our humanity actually about? Like, what is it? What is sexual satisfaction? What is wholeness? What results in a real feeling of wholeness in this particular area of our lives? And how do you create that? How do you deal with the problems that get in the way of that?
Yeah.
So this thing of like, am I going to be alone forever? There's so like Man, this is such a tricky thing because it's like, yeah, we want to be hopeful and encouraging with people, but I think part of that is to tell them straight that like there's a real risk that you will.
Mm.
There's a
Yeah.
real risk. I remember once I was having a conversation with a man who was like, "Oh, it's going to be all right." And I looked him in the eye and was like, "It's not. It's not going to be all right. You can do whatever you want, but this is likely going to be the outcome of you continuing to do what you've been doing." It's like a moment of intervention. It can turn into a contract to help them, basically. I don't mean like literally like a contractual thing. I mean like an agreement that the agreement usually comes out of the awareness that what I'm doing plus time equals bad. Like, so it's like, it's like this thing of like, oh, am I going to be alone forever? It's like, oh no, man, like there's hope for you. And on another level, it's helpful to be like, the likelihood of this turning out the way that you want is almost zero unless you take responsibility for creating a different outcome.
Hmm.
That's it. And it's like there's so much evidence. You look at the divorce rates, you look at sexless marriage rates, you look at second and third divorce rates, you look at prostate and testicular health, porn addiction, how much money people spend on prostitutes. It is trending worse. It's not getting better, and you are probably inside of it if you're not clear that you are outside of it. Like, it's like, this is real. This is so big, and it touches so many areas of life from, like, personal health and self-esteem and vitality and aging and testosterone levels, and it's fucking serious. It's serious business, right? So it's like, oh, it's just sex, whatever. Like it's almost like the icing on the cake. And I'm like, it is the cake. This is so fundamental to your identity and to the rest of your life. And the practice of taking responsibility for this will in and of itself shift other stuff, but it also will kind of get your head out of the mud.
Yeah. I
Cool.
do like that framing of like, you know, if you don't do anything different, then it won't be okay, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's real
Like,
stakes. Like this is for real. That like this is for real. Right? And it's like in working with couples, the leverage comes from the woman often. Right? Like a lot of men are pretty damn unlikely to try to improve their relationship until they have to. It's like they're it's just not likely that they're gonna be like, "Hey, I would like to experience more intimacy and harmony in my home. Let's work on that together," is, like, not usually like a way that, men are more likely to ask for directions than to ask to work on their relationship as, Yeah, Terry Real, great teacher and mentor of mine, likes to say. So yeah, often women are the way in, but it's tricky because the women who are dissatisfied because you're not taking responsibility for your sexual life, you don't even know them. So it's like you've never met her yet. You don't know her. So she's not going to be like, "We need to sit down and talk about this because you got to get your head out of your ass," because you've never even met that girl yet. Right? So like when you're in a marriage and the woman's like, "I'm going to leave you if you don't do something different. If you don't stop watching porn, I'm going to leave you." And then it's like, "Oh, well she's being controlling." It's like, "Not really. She's just telling you what she's going to do. If you may like you can do whatever you want, dude.
Right.
She's letting you know what's going to happen." Right? But it's like nobody's letting a lot of men know what's going to happen. Nobody's being like, "Hey, like if you go left instead of right, we're going to have a 20-year relationship that is amazingly awesome." Like she's not there. She's not being like, "Hey, dude, like I'm confronting you on this because like I don't want this. I don't think it's good for you. It's not what I want." Right? It's like the intervention it's like I guess what I'm trying to speak to is that like how how can we put the reality of consequences in front of people's face? Because we're so isolated that consequences and feedback are not coming from other people. It's not
Mm.
like an elder man who's like, "Hey man, like I love you and I watch you and I think that what you're doing is not good." Like that doesn't happen. Are you kidding me? It's not, and it's like it's not like women in the community might be like, "Dude, like it seems like the way that you're relating to me and the other women around here is not ever going to turn into a meaningful relationship and you should work on that." Like, what? Like,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
so fragmented from the feedback that is outside of time and in other people's realities. So there's risk, there's risk. It's real. But anyways, I think we've talked about that enough. It's just it's sad to me, like I it's man, it's like the amount of men who are just like, "Oh, well, it's like okay." And then, you know, a week turns into a year, into a decade, and N yeah, now you're a weird old man who lives by himself. It's like, God, that's sad.
yeah. It just eventually turns into you trying to convince yourself that you don't want the thing that you want. Uh, and
Yeah,
that turns into a very sad existence. And that is sort of leading to the path where you're saying, like, you're not going to be fucking okay. You're not. But there's a course correction that can be made if you make that choice to take an honest look at your life, your decisions, your choices, the way you dress, your hair, your hygiene, your job, your fucking what you know about yourself, what you don't know about yourself. Every little piece of that can be sorted out over a long period of time that could lead you in a direction that will probably be better, more fulfilling than this current state of deep isolation and loneliness that you currently feel. And wouldn't that be fucking awesome? Isn't that worth it? I think
yeah,
so, personally.
yeah, yeah, and Aaron, I know that this is very much in your wheelhouse that I can imagine that some folks listening to this might feel like that's so overwhelming. Like you just listed 19 things and fuck, dude. Like, well, how do I do that? How am I going to find the time for that? If I need help, that'll cost money. I don't have money for that. I might as well just like crack open whatever, just like drink some alcohol and watch Netflix or whatever, put on the game, whatever. Right. And it's like, this is another part of the issue is that we do as a culture, we are not highlighting viable paths for personal development. It's not clear that like this is a process. Like you can literally just like there's a it's like there's not like a turnstile that you like walk through and then you like go through a process of becoming the man that you want to be. It's not a thing, but it is. It actually is. It just takes understanding what is that turnstile and what is the path and who can help me do that. And part of it is a shame issue that people feel like there's something wrong with them for admitting that they need help. And, the way that you need help is because you can't do it without help. Like that's, it's like that it's just if you don't know how to do it, get help. And the way you know that you don't know how to do it is because you can't do it.
Right.
Like, uh,
Right.
you know, so there's all of that. And, um, Yeah, I guess the bottom line is that like the solutions are there, and in a lot of cases, you're the only one who is going to mobilize you to taking advantage of the solutions. Nobody is going to have an intervention and sit you down and be like, "Hey, we're all concerned about you. You should have more sex." Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this conversation. I think we definitely got to the couple points that I wanted to hit on based on our last conversation, which our previous conversation was what is sex for? We basically talked about that for like an hour and a half. And then if you're unfamiliar with Rob, you're just hitting this right now. Go to our first conversation. It's a little more a little bit more about what he does, and then our second conversation was again what about sex is for, and then we got a little bit more practical here. So maybe I'll put all three of our episodes in one compilation episode, and it's like a fucking 3.5 hour guide to being fucking awesome or something like that. But if you want to more about Rob, it's linked in the description below. It's his site, coaching calls, all that stuff. Last words, Rob?
Um, I let go of the feeling like there's more that I want to share, as I so often do at the end of podcasts, especially hour-long ones, that I'm like, "Oh, man." I just I have seen time and time again that this change can happen in a relatively short period of time, and whether men feel like totally outside of having the kind of sex life that they want, or they're just like, I checked all the boxes and I still am like, this isn't it. This isn't what I'm looking for. That you're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually respectful and dope that you admit that. And yeah, I mean, if you want that solution, just get the help you need to make it happen. It is potentially one of the most meaningful and rewarding things you will ever do, ever.
100%.
So that's
Thank
what I
you, Rob.
got. Thank
Appreciate
you,
you, man.
Aaron. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.